time, Leslie, would you please call the roll and then lead us in the pledge of allegiance and the invocation?
Councilman Slater?
Here.
Councilman Abear?
Here.
Councilman Torgerson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nail?
Here.
And Mayor Fitch?
Here.
Will stand for the invocation pledge. Let those present aware that the business conducted here this evening will be for the continued betterment of our city and in keeping with our commandments, we ask in God's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll open the meeting, and this is just for public awareness pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020. Municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing, as provided by section 120-545B2 Florida statutes, for members of the council appearing remotely and for public participation. While a quorum of council members are physically present for this meeting, along with a minimal number of key staff, we are following the governor's emergency orders and the city's emergency declarations by having less than 10 people physically present, and we are maintaining a distance of 6 feet between people and following other CDC guidelines for social distancing and protection. I'd now like to ask our city attorney to explain the procedures for public comment and participation in the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Following are the city's rules for utilizing communications media technology as provided by section 120.54 5B2 Florida statutes and as adopted by the City Council on April 6, 2020. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube Live and also on the city's Facebook page. The agenda and backup material in the agenda packet are posted on the city's website as usual, and as set forth in the notice for this meeting, which was also posted last week, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to review the agenda and submit their questions or comments on agenda items by email to the city clerk with their name and address and a reference to the agenda item on which they wish to comment. It was also explained in the notice that questions or comments on agenda items could also be mailed directly to the city clerk's attention at the City of Gulf Breeze, City Hall, 1070 Shoreline Drive, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32561. The city requested that all correspondence be received by 4 p.m. Central Standard Time today, April 20th. As we go through the agenda during this meeting tonight, the mayor will ask for public comment on the agenda items as usual. And at that point in the meeting, the clerk will read questions or comments submitted, and the mayor or council members will then have an opportunity to respond as if the comments were being made in person. If there are any follow-up comments or questions, or if anyone who did not submit a question beforehand wishes to be heard, the comments should be made through YouTube Live, the chat box, which the clerk is monitoring, and you must provide your name, address, and question or comment, which will then be read and responded to by the council. Anyone who would like to participate in the public forum at the end of the meeting should also comment through YouTube Live with your name, address, and question or comment. The standard rules apply throughout this meeting, with comments being limited to 3 minutes and applicable to the agenda topic being considered if you are commenting on a specific agenda item. Does the council or mayor have any questions on the process? Thank you, we're ready.
All right. First thing on the agenda tonight is to approve our minutes from April 6, 2020. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and Any discussion? Leslie, have we had any comments or, communication regarding this?
Yeah, no, ma'am.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say yes, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, next we have got, we'll move on to resolutions. And, we'll call resolution number 16-2020, approving a plan of finance for Plato Holdings LLC. Samantha?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A TEPRA hearing was held this morning on the matter of providing a plan of finance not to exceed $60 million at the recommendation of the Capital Trust Agency Board to facilitate educational facility lease revenue bonds for Plato Academy Schools Corporation and Clearwater, Florida. There were no members of the public who attended by conference call. Our CTA bond counsel did attend by conference call. There were also no members of the public who attended either publicly or sending emails. And so with that, the CTA has recommended approval, and your approval is necessary prior to final resolution of the CTA.
All right, thank you. Leslie, do you have any comments or communication?
No, ma'am, not received.
All right, council, will we, motion for approval?
Move to approve.
All right,
Second.
got a motion and a second for approval. Any council discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, our next resolution is number 17-2020, and that's approving a plan of finance for the Pepin Academies Incorporated. Samantha?
Thank you. And Mayor, this plan of finance is not to exceed $13,500,000 in Capital Trust Agency educational facility revenue bonds. The TEPRA hearing was held this morning. Again, there were no members of the public who phoned in or attended. Bond counsel did participate by phone call. We also had no email inquiries from the public. Your CTA board does recommend approval. Your approval is needed before final resolution approval by the CTA.
All right, thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, we did not receive any comments regarding this item.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
All right, and a second.
I'll second his.
All right. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, next we'll move on to the consent agenda items. And are there any items the council would like to remove from the consent agenda?
Maybe remove item B, the model
Okay,
discussion.
all right, that's fine. We'll go ahead and begin then with item A, which is the emergency lift station pump replacement. So all in favor, is there any discussion about that? Item A? Okay. Public
We
comment?
did not receive any public comment regarding the consent agenda item.
Okay, all right, thank you. So, do we have a motion for item A, the emergency lift station pump replacement?
Move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve,
Second.
and we have a second. Any council discussion? All right, hearing none, and we have no comments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. All right, 5-0 passes. Next, we've got the emergency variable frequency drive purchases. Samantha?
I'll turn it over to Councilman Nader.
Okay,
I guess what I would like to discuss is looking at the three bids, Hydro Services, Morrow Water Technologies, and Pump and Process. Obviously, staff's recommendation is for Pump and Process for $10,972. Just reviewing the quotation, I noticed on the back, it indicated an adder for the pumps of $1,100 each for a 6-year parts and labor on-site warranty per pump, for a total of $2,200. Even if you add that $2,200 to the $10,972 that staff is recommending, we still fall far below the other two. But it looks like it's an adder, and I would recommend that we add that warranty to the VFD pumps, replacement drive, excuse me. So I would maybe like to amend my motion to, that I make a motion that we amend the motion to add for the extended warranties for these pumps, $1,100 each for a total of $2,200 for the two the drive assemblies, in addition to what staff recommended for the $10,972.
What does staff say about that?
So I did receive clarification right before the meeting, and it comes with a 2-year warranty, but the 6-year is preferred, and so, staff expressed appreciation that that there's a willingness, and whenever possible, they prefer the 6-year.
Do we normally buy the extra warranty?
When available, and so here, the 2-year was considered, good enough, but because the 6-year was an add-on, but the 6-year is definitely preferred by staff.
Statistically, you get beat out if you buy it.
Yeah.
But it depends on the product, and you know a lot more about it.
And my assumption is in the first 2 years, we're probably not gonna have any trouble within the factory warranty, but in 6 years out, a lot can happen. And it just seems like a good, purchase, to protect that for 6 years, part and labor, on-site warranty, so, that's why I recommend it.
Pumps may cost a lot more by that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Tom. All right, any other discussion?
You see a second.
A second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second, to amend the staff recommendation by adding the, extended warranty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say sign. Passes, 5-0. All right, next we're moving on to our action items, and, first is our architectural services contract for the Public Services Office extension.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In 2019, the council approved of funding for the renovation and enclosing of one of the public services open bays. You also approved the repair and renovation of a damaged existing metal building next to the city's current storage area. Since that time, a preliminary set of plans has been prepared by staff, and an on-site architectural consultant was conducted. That's Goodman, Mills, and Kaywood. Based on the preliminary set of plans and on-site architectural consultation, staff is looking to the next step of this project, which is preparing the necessary set of plans that will be used to secure a building permit and a contractor. The basic services needed from the architect include field verification of existing conditions, demolition plans, new work plans, and associated details, schedules, and specifications addressing the project scope, mechanical, electrical documents, submittal to jurisdictional authorities for permitting, and preparing the bid documents necessary to solicit bids for the general contractors. So this is in accordance with CCNA requirements. The authorization is to award architectural services for the Public Services Office expansion project to Goodman, Mills, and Kaywood for the Public Services Office expansion in the amount of $8,300.
All right, thank you. Leslie, did you have any communication regarding that?
Amen.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions or motion? Anyone, want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, do we have a second? Okay, any, discussion? I think this is a company that we've used several times in the past, so we're very satisfied, at least the architect is. Okay. All right, all right, a motion second, so all in favor, say aye. Aye, and opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, on item D is the advertisement of the intent to bid for disaster-related debris removal services.
Yes. Mayor and Council, this is that time of year where we have reviewed our natural disaster preparedness plans, making sure that we have reviewed our SOPs internally with our divisions. Last year was the first year that the council secured a bid for disaster-related debris removal services. This is a contract that if all goes well, you'll never activate, and that's the hope. But it is there, and so if necessary and your manning resources are being used for other disaster recovery, then we would have this option. FEMA very much likes to have this option that you already have a contract that's secured, that spells out what the reimbursement will be, the monitoring. It makes it much more easier when you're then coordinating with federal agencies after the fact. And so year. It is an annual contract, so you will see this as a matter of business in the future as well. There is a provision for a one-year renewal. However, rather than renew it, we did want to bid it back out because in talking with the contractors last year and talking with other, sister cities and counties, we found that there was just some ambiguity, some tightening up in the language, and Mary Jane has been coordinating with Thomas on that. So we're asking for your authorization to advertise the intent to bid for qualified firms for the cleanup, demolition, removal, reduction, and disposal of debris related to disaster recovery services.
Thank you. Leslie, did we have a presentation?
We do have an email I received today. I'll read it into the record. The email is from Bob Placenta, P-A-C-E-T-A. He is at 647 Monterey Circle. The email states, in review of the bid and the proposed contract, why is there no language referencing uniform guidance in either of these documents? I suggest reviewing the bid and contract completed by the city of Fort Walton Beach for further guidance. Thank you.
Mary Jane?
Mayor, I'd like to respond. This contract, as Samantha indicated, is one that we went out for bid on last year, and the staff had recommended just using the same base contract. It does provide in multiple places for compliance with all federal regulations and guidelines, any federal law and any other applicable law. And our purchasing policies and procedures also require that. That said, the uniform guidances or guidance that is referenced by Mr. Placenta, those are very detailed regulations and code of federal regulations that deal with auditing and record keeping and requirements, administrative requirements, in order for grant monies that could be used to reimburse the city. And of course, in this context, with debris removal, we would anticipate that we would be looking for reimbursement through FEMA if we were unfortunate and had to implement this contract. Our staff, the finance director, the city manager, and others on the staff are very, very aware of these regulations and this guidance and adhere to them, and ensure our contractors adhere to them so that you are eligible for that reimbursement. All of that said, I have no problem with making a specific reference to this guidance in this contract. What you're doing tonight is just approving us going out to advertise for it, and so if you were agreeable, we will make a few changes and tweaks to specifically mention that. I don't know, our contracts, it's structured differently from the Fort Walton Beach one, in which Mr. Placenta mentioned. I don't think we have to go back to square one, but I do think we can simply put a reference in so that, contractors are aware we do expect that. But again, we expect it's already there and covered just in a more general fashion. So.
Okay.
I think that'd be good. Bob has a lot of experience in public sector purchasing, so his comments are probably worthwhile.
Anyone else, any discussion? All right, do we have
Louise.
Sure.
Thought I saw it in here, but do we designate where in the contract itself, or at what point do we designate where the removal goes to?
At the time that we would have to. And so, last time obviously we used the community center, ballparks and fields. And so just depending on the nature of the natural disaster, that would be the time that we would be most likely to do that.
I know, I think it was Ivan who used to, down the highway past Tucker Court, got the name of the street now.
I believe it was on Bergen Road, was it not?
Well, it wasn't that far down, it was on the south side of 180. It's probably one of those bridge areas, I just don't remember the street.
I know that the county uses Bergen Road from time to time as one of their staging places that they review as well. So.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? All right, hearing none at this time, all in favor say aye. Oh, that's all.
Make it
Mr. Jacinta for taking the time to email us and ask the questions and make the suggestions. All right, next, we have item C on our action items, and that's the public services inmate work through contract. So, Mary.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We received an email from the Department of Corrections the week before last, because this is a contract that is renewed every December. They are looking at their budget for the next year, and they have asked for us to let them know conceptually this month, in the month of April, whether we will be renewing the contract for the next 3-year term. And happily, I can report to you that we had already been deep in the analysis of that business decision to be able to discuss that very issue with you. And so truly, it was about 90% complete when that email came through. And so we shared with them that we felt pretty confident we would be able to place that on a council agenda in April and get a response back to them. So I do want to just take a minute to acknowledge the fine work of our public services department who have been reviewing that very question. We have utilized an inmate crew in the city for the last 24 years. Up until this last year, you have not had a service worker in public works whose job was solely to provide maintenance inside the city. So your service workers are shared with your different enterprises, and so that service worker may be addressing stormwater, may be addressing water and sewer connections, and may be addressing maintenance. Because of your focus on resiliency, this council has already supported a reorganization plan of our public services department where you are more decentralized. You have division managers rather than the typical central management director and assistant director. Those division managers, as you well know, are development services manager Thomas Lambert, who has 2 project managers underneath him, as well as GIS. You'll be hearing from those project managers who are overseeing your East Basin stormwater project, your Bear Drive, your reprioritized paving plan, and the like, so that those capital projects won't be waiting on that one person who's responsible for all bidding and project management in the city. But your new division within the city, your public services division, has a new person at the helm, Sam Wilson, that coincidentally we hired him after years of experience with the city of Fort Walton. But he has a person with him, Justin Cook, who we have hired from DEP, and it brings environmental management to that division for the first time. Sam Wilson oversees stormwater, your inside the city, and also your maintenance. You have 3 service workers that report to service worker 1, 2, and 3 who report to Justin Cook. And so that's the foundation that you have already laid. You have funded those positions, and we have staggered the hiring of those positions. And so we have looked at the efficacy of your inmate program. You had to really do something because the inmate program has not been stable now for a number of years. And so we provide that analysis in the memo, but also in the backups, just as a matter of collecting the data and analysis, just to share some of the issues noted. The inmate crew works half days, 4 days a week. That's under the most ideal of situations. But the inmate crew misses several work days per month for various reasons. And so if there's an inmate who's caught with contraband anywhere in the county, that affects our ability to receive inmates for however long until they're released to come back to work. The inmate crews are limited to labor only, and the yearly cost of an inmate work crew is more than hiring 2 full-time service workers. Since the inmate crews do not work on Friday, the city is receiving at most 16 hours of work from an inmate crew per week. That consists of travel time for our staff to and from Century, lunch breaks, and required breaks. As I shared, the inmate crews are limited to labor-intensive jobs. That means that the inmate crews are sufficient for clearing right-of-way, cutting weeds and the like, but that isn't equal to the stormwater operator issues that are required with our NPDES permit unlike inmate service workers can be hired to perform labor and trained as stormwater operators, giving the department the flexibility to work on both projects. And we really see that as the next step of your stormwater fund, that you have been working to make sure that it is operating as a true enterprise. So it's part of being proactive, not just addressing stormwater issues when they have happened, but you have repeatedly asked me, who is out there looking to make sure that we are keeping those drainage areas clear? What is our maintenance schedule? And what I've had to share with you is, of course, well, we're sharing that person with other enterprises, and so we kind of eyeball it, but we don't really have that schedule that you would like to see. And so you have been working on that throughout the year. And the sum total is that the inmate work crew cost the city $58,972 annually. But of course, what we are seeing is that the inmate crew it has just not been able to provide consistent service. Our records indicate that the inmate crew has missed a total of 43 workdays since January 1st. Particularly during the growing season last year, we had a lot of comments from citizens who were noticing the overgrowth, and it was very difficult for us to keep up, which was one of the reasons that when budget came, that you explored, is it finally time for us to have some designated service workers just focused inside the city. And so I'm able to happily report that staff does recommend canceling the inmate contract, but we think that not only will you not notice that, a difference in service, but you're gonna continue to see an improvement in service. And so we're very glad to report that. We also talk about in the future, there may be hiring of service workers, but I want to note that, as I just shared, you've done that. You've done that since last budget year, and so we equate the cost of the inmates to those 2 new service workers, and the total to the taxpayers is about an $8,742 difference. Again, if our inmates were actually able to report to work that 4 days a week, which they're not. So we think this is an excellent cost savings for citizens, especially in return for the higher level of service that they'll be receiving. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the contract termination that we're recommending.
Okay. Any questions, Laura?
Difference is savings.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, right, I'll make sure everybody knows that.
Yes.
I think it's good because it does 2 things. It gives us control over our environment. We can point them where they need to be when we want to. And the other is that, I don't know about the rest of the council, but I've got some citizens over the years that have indicated concern about the inmates and what they're doing and where they are. So I think having our own team out there is probably give our citizens more confidence.
I agree, and it's amazing that 2 can do the work that seemed like was getting done, the other way. So I support that. I have not wanted to have our full-time employees here. So sounds good to me.
I do want to, just for clarification, make sure to point out that on the West Golf Course, for maintenance, we do continue to have an inmate crew, through South Santa Rosa Utility. And so that crew is designated just to our golf courses. That will be a separate contract and a separate issue that we may bring back to the council, but right now we're talking about the inmate crew that works exclusively inside the city.
Just my only question in that is the question, when you say you have an inmate program, the perception that I would think as a citizen that it's free of charge. Obviously, it's not so free, is it? And, the only drawback is with these 4 days a week, only half days, the only problem is being an inmate, but their work schedule is pretty nice. When you consider they're only working half a day and 4 days a week. And then it depends on how many times they do this as well. So I like the idea of this is a great opportunity to get probably more consistent and better work performed out of it as opposed to that. I just want to make sure that people know that that inmate program was not free of cost to the city. By hiring these 2, it's actually saving the city money. Pretty good.
There's also the factor, as mentioned earlier, about where they work. I know that anytime they're working around one of the churches or one of the preschools or anything like that, there's a little nervousness involved in that. Fix that.
Yeah, I have no ties concerns.
Do they help at the transfer station too, don't they?
Is that the same group?
It is the same group, and so from time to time, primarily, they're needed on maintenance, and that maintenance for the last 3 years has really fallen behind because, they have not been able to attend those 4-day work weeks. So we may need them at the transfer station occasionally, but that is not a routine part of their
That's not the
schedule.
time zone out there that's been
Yeah,
asked for from transportation.
yeah, not a routine part of their, work, but because they ultimately work underneath, you know, maintenance, we may need them up there just with mulching and that sort of thing. But yeah.
Any other comments? Leslie, do you have any, public? All right, thank you. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Why do I keep?
We're doing this
doing
backwards.
motions?
We're
It's
putting
because
this
I'm
motion in.
always asking Leslie something.
We'll sub it
Okay.
in, don't worry about it.
It sounded like everybody was for it. Okay,
I move for approval.
thank you.
Yeah.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion in several seconds, so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign, thank you.
When you can't remember if you have a motion or not, it means we probably spent too much time on the subject.
This one, next one's gonna be right. Okay, our last action agenda item is the purchase of the new 52-inch mower. Samantha.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I believe that this item first came up for authorization to bid when, Colby Goss, our Assistant City Manager, sat in my absence. And, it was explained to the council that with that increase in, service, we are in need of an additional mower. That, council rightfully pointed out that this is an item that first should have come up, during budget discussions. At that time, there's a focus on stormwater because again, this division shares personnel and there was a lot of discussion back and forth about, whether should be a street sweeper. Ultimately, the, council felt that that was not a good investment because of the exorbitant, maintenance costs. The staff should have dropped down to their second priority and discussed with you then the need for a second mower. And, so they do make a proposal. They have the finance director backing them up, that there is money in their budget. And that, we're proposing that be paid out of your LOST funds for maintenance. But we're asking for the council to approve an expenditure of $8,384.89 to purchase one Toro 5000 series, mower with a 52-inch, deck. And you can see the attached bids. Happy to answer any questions.
I spoke my piece when we talked about it the first time.
I heard about it.
I guess, maybe that's the week we were discussing, but for some reason I thought we already did bought one.
No, I think
We
it was
discussed
the
the T5.
It was good.
Okay, I remember that.
I came back and they were
Okay.
bloodied and battered and having run the gauntlet. Good.
Leslie, do we have any public comment?
Many have not received.
All right, now, do we have a motion
Move for approval.
and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed, same sign, and so we passes 5-0. All right, before we move on to new business, we need to adjourn our council meeting and open our CRA meeting. And, on our CRA agenda tonight, we have first to approve the minutes from that April 20th CRA, meeting. Do we have any questions or comments about that?
Move for approval.
All right, do we have a second? All right, and Leslie, do we have any public comment?
Tammy, I've
All
not
right,
received.
thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes pass as written. And then on our, business for that, it's a discussion of our small business grant assistance program. Samantha?
Well, Mayor, I believe I should turn this back to you, but I'll kick it off. And just to say that, the city received an email from Shannon Ogletree, who's the Executive Director of Santa Rosa County Economic Development. the idea is that this will not be sufficient by any means to help small businesses during the pandemic, but it will help them with the gap until they can receive their stimulus support, hopefully. And so Milton in kind stepped up and said that within the city, they would contribute 60,000. And so that really addresses all areas except for within the incorporated limits of Gulf Breeze. And so we shared with you at your last meeting that that conversation had just taken place. The mayor introduced that concept to you under council comments and conceptually shared that she would like to place this on the agenda for this evening. We have advertised the concept on the Economic Development of Santa Rosa County Office website, but we haven't done that much more promotion of it, waiting for your discussion this evening. If you approve the funding, then tomorrow, the applications will be reviewed by SBDC and, you know, rewards can start soon after. The closing period is the end of this month. You will receive a final report, but each grant is not to exceed $2,500, and at a $60,000 contribution, which is in the what Milton also suggested, that would amount to 24 potential businesses. We do recommend for the funding plan, a split, and that's why this is on your CRA agenda, because we recommend a split between CRA and TDC funds, and that is obviously dependent on eligibility. And so if it's a tourist-oriented business, then we will put that in the column for TDC funding. If it's within your CRA, which the majority of your storefront businesses will be, then it'll be within the CRA. And so that's part of that final report that we would bring back to you. Happy to answer any questions. I'm sure, Mayor, you'd like to add to them.
No, it sounds like a great program, and the way that it was delivered to us is that it will be basically a simple application. It will be quickly addressed, so, and the money can be distributed, and we, obviously, it's gonna be hopefully like a bridge for people until they can get larger and consistent grants. And that's coming down the road, but I know I can probably think of several in my head asking you that, you know, this 2,500 could help them.
I was just wondering if some applicants have already submitted their request.
I don't know of any, but, so we have not received information that anybody has submitted thus far.
In that case, I wonder if it's supposed to conclude, start on the 21st, conclude on the 28th. Is that sufficient time for everybody to get their requests together?
We can certainly extend that if you would like. We can extend it by a week. We have not, just the way that the timing fell, obviously, we are where we are, and so I don't think there'll be any harm in extending it by a week.
How do people know about this? How do they know about this?
We will, so, in coordination with the SBDC and, you know, Santa Rosa County Economic Development, they'll do a big push. Actually, Cherry has recorded a commercial with Shannon Ogletree where they're explaining what the criteria are. And so we'll push that off on all of our social media. We'll push it out by Nixle. We'll do a pretty big push on it.
No, I'm sorry. It's not the release in this
I
time.
think just getting this.
know it's right.
Yeah.
You know, seriously.
Oh, yeah. We had to come back a second thing. Okay, and also on the www.santarosaready.com, I think that it's already on there, and so I believe that, and that has a lot of different assistance programs in terms of how people can apply. So that, I would assume many people are just going to that website to get started for anything they qualify for.
Yes, I did go on there and look, but as I said, because, I mean, it's up there along with other opportunities for funding, but utilizing our Chamber of Commerce and pushing that out through social media and all those things, we did not do that before the council's discussion tonight. So right now, it's basically, it's a link embedded within a website. So we need to probably more heavily promoted, if the council were to support it tonight.
So if someone was looking to fill out the application, they could go to the city's website and click a link, it would take them to the form.
We'll add one to send them there, yes.
It's a fairly simplified form.
It's a one,
Doesn't take forever.
yeah, it's a one-page form. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am, and be able to go through their focus on these and get, trying to get the small ones up. All right, any further discussion from council?
Well, where do we stand on the day, in the day?
You have a recommendation?
See what yeah, you caught that, it's a good catch, Tom, because I mean, that's a short window. You know, to get in, of course, it's only limited to how many is it?
24.
24, so, I mean, I know there's more than 24 restaurants in the city, counted before my told my wife, I said, you realize that like 28 different restaurants? But we only usually eat at 2 or 3, you know, all the time. That's kind of crazy, but you start counting, it's quite a few.
This is being evaluated as it goes, as the applications come in and evaluate, you don't have to wait till.
Who's that?
One,
It'll be the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and they're doing the same for Milton and for the county. So it takes the subjectivity out of it, and it truly is kind of a first come, first serve. If you meet the, I think 5 criteria, which is that, you know, you have a storefront, that you're a small business with no more than 20 employees, you've been profitable prior to COVID, and that you've had a reduction in sale revenues of 25% or greater. If you meet that, then you would receive one of these grants.
Yeah, and a sole proprietor business just needs to be in business before January 2019 and show loss. So,
That's an important point you just brought up, because, sole proprietors, or that maybe a barber shop that might have 1099 employees working for them, don't really qualify for the payroll protection plan or the SBA money, because you can only get like $1,000 per person. It's not $10,000 that people were thinking, so some of these little small ones are falling through the cracks. And this would potentially help some of those guys out a little better than, the payroll protection plan. It's not really gonna benefit them at all, or the, SBA loan as well. So that's a good point, by the sole proprietor, sometimes that's the ones that are really hurt the most.
and I think it requires the most paperwork sometimes I've heard. Okay, any other comments,
We
discussion?
changed it.
I would recommend changing the date to like May 2nd.
Is that
The
much?
Friday after.
Actually, that's a Saturday, May 5th, the one from the 28th. So the due date right now is the 28th, Tuesday, April 28th, 1 week would be May the 5th on Tuesday.
You have to have a date. I mean, what if you fill up in one day, or it takes 30 days to get 20?
We can remove the date, and then if we feel like the council wants to put one on, I agree, with only 24 businesses, you may not even need a date.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think it'll,
Maybe,
yeah.
the main thing is the end date to getting the application.
Yeah.
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 Then, as long as the money stays there, we keep running the program.
Yeah.
On the payroll selection
First
plan,
come,
we
first
see how
served.
fast it went out.
Yeah.
For some reason, we didn't spend all the money, businesses are hooking back up. We don't have to give it away to somebody.
Right.
Right, that's correct.
Then I would say, you know, it's just not worth it.
Right.
That keeps it simple.
Move for approval with the change, modifying it to, remove the date of April 20th.
All right. Do we have,
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second, and Leslie, have we had any,
No, ma'am, we cannot proceed.
no other comment? All right, so, at this time, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And, opposed, same sign, hearing none, passes 5-0. So we'll close the CRA meeting and come back to our regular agenda. At this time, do we have new business?
we don't have any new business. I did want to just update the council on our pandemic response and COVID in the community. I can do that at some other time. It isn't business. Adjustment. So the media has been confusing, and so we are trying to make sure that our public is receiving information as it relates to the pandemic response inside the city. We think that's our evaluation of how well are we doing at enforcing CDC recommendations and being proactive. And so the last update I saw from our local media, I believe, has Gulf Breeze as having 26 COVID cases. And the reason for that is because, as we know, the Department of Health is reporting based on the 32561 zip code, which is outside the city limits and also includes the beach. The COVID #9 update that we put out last week is still current, which says that the number of active COVID cases inside the city is 9. Not 26, but 9. And I verified that again today with the Department of Health and with the Department of Public Safety. And so that I wanted to share with you. The reason for that is we do have 8 residents of an assisted living facility. 2 are in independent living. The other 6 are in the assisted living facility. There was one of the residents in the independent living facility had recently had surgery that was shared with us. And so in the Department of Health tracking the spread, that may be one potential way, because in the assisted living facility, there is not as much opportunity for travel. And so right now what we are hearing is the indications are that there is no community spread. Outside of those 8 residents, we do have 1 resident in the Shirley area who also has tested positive. Originally, we had 2 winter birds, you'll recall, about a month ago. Both of those, thankfully, have been cleared, and once that they've returned to full health. But I know that we all are breathing a big sigh of relief that they are feeling much better, and so they have come off that list. That's why we have a total of 9. There are still more than a dozen cases that are awaiting to be confirmed, not confirmed, or waiting to be reviewed by the Department of Health. So I don't know that that 9 is where the number will stop. We'll continue to see reports come in from our assisted living facilities. So I wanted to share that with you, is that they are being very proactive. These cases are because the facility was proactive in testing their residents and then providing those tests to the Department of Health, who then verifies and will go back and do additional testing as they see necessary. So I'll continue to provide that to you because that number may change, but it's important, as this council is the only council in the 3-county area who enforced with fines the CDC recommendations 2 weeks prior to the governor's executive order doing that. And so I think it is laudable that the council had approved a pandemic plan before the COVID declaration of emergency, and you have been able to redeploy staff who have been at your parks, and there's banners up, but for individuals to call who may see people who aren't adhering to those CDC recommendations. So given the size of our community, we're able to be very proactive. Hopefully you've been out there and seeing how visible they are. Some of them are wearing their orange vests. And when we have seen concerns, maybe a group larger than 10, when we communicate with them, they've been quick to disperse. And so we're continuing to try that proactive approach. But that is where we are right now, and so I wanted to share that with you.
And I think, didn't you say also, Sam, that they tested all the staff at the assisted living as well?
Yes, we've been in communication with the COO, with the parent company to that assisted living facility, and so we're grateful that, unlike other local governments, this private business put out a press release and put a message out there, which means that there wasn't question and speculation by our public, and so we appreciate them understanding our position, because certainly we can't put that information out first, and we appreciate them doing that, and also sharing with us that they had likewise tested their staff, and that they were working with, the state agencies who had already been reviewing their response plan. So we're continuing to communicate with them, and we appreciate that they have not shuttered up their facility and they're not closed-lipped, but they have been doing, everything that they can to be transparent with us. So I appreciate that, while of course adhering to HIPAA laws.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, any other new business?
Was there any updates from the governor? Did he have some type of, he did it 1 o'clock, watch that?
I did not watch that at one. Usually it's a little bit later in the afternoon. So Chief Hawthorne and Chief Carmichael did. If they were here, they could update you.
Okay.
And then Mondays, I usually have a update with the city manager of Milton and the county administrator, Dan Shevler. It's been pushed to Tuesday. The county and our public safety director were involved in a food drive today, so they asked that that'll be tomorrow, but I'll update you after that as well,
And then we have our IDR.
tomorrow morning.
Okay. Any other new business? All right, we'll move on, discussion items. Sam?
That was it.
Well, good for you. And so public forum, Leslie, I believe we have something for public forum.
Yes, ma'am. I received a call and an email today. I'll go ahead and read it in the record. It's from Jeff Knoll. He is at 413 Warwick Street. Mr. Knoll stated that, I appreciate you clarifying that it is the city that keeps non-emergency lines of citizens should call to report behavior at city parks that is not keeping with CDC guidelines and applicable fines posted. Maybe this number should be added to signage. I have observed frequent non-compliance in the skateboard cage and the basketball courts at Shoreline Park. Though skateboarding is more of an individual sport, they tend to gather. Regarding the basketball court, the worst observed was on Saturday. There was a group of about 12 young teenagers engaged in an active game, stealing the ball from each other and other forms of body contact. There was definitely no 6-foot social distancing. I recommend removing the hoops from the back of the courts, which is what the city of Pensacola has done in all city parks. Prior to the special meeting of the Escambia County Commission at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, April 28th, I would like to request a public resolution of Gulf Breeze City Council against reopening Pensacola Beach at this time. I would further request that the resolution be released to the media in advance of the April 28th meeting, and also have it submitted as public input prior to the April 28th meeting, so that it can be read into record at the meeting. They are accepting advanced submissions online. If the beach is reopened, Gulf Breeze will be negatively impacted. We need to send a clear message that reopening Pensacola Beach and putting our community at increased risk is not acceptable. Lastly, which is related to the beach issue, what was the final outcome of the Airbnb issue on Cumberland Street? Thank you, Jeff Knoll.
All right, thank you. Sam, do we want to start backwards with the Cumberland and then we'll go to?
Yes, and I did just send a response to Mr. Now and copy the council prior to this evening, but I did realize in listening to Leslie that I accidentally omitted something from my response, and that was the Airbnb question. And so I'll follow up to the email just in case Mr. Now isn't listening this evening, but the mayor did extend the executive order related to Airbnbs. We had quite a few citizens express their concern, and so we appreciate that. As of right now, Airbnb still are prohibited due to the pandemic, except for the exemptions that are stated in the order, which relate to active duty military, healthcare providers, and the like. And so, answering the first, as it relates to the closure of the beaches, you have in front of you an email from Mayor Robinson and an attached letter that was sent Friday to the Board of County Commissioners and Mayor Fitch and also Mayor Heather Lindsay. There continued to be texts throughout the weekend back and forth And so, in talking with, the county administrator this morning, what he shared with me is that there is not going to be a intention, as he understands from his commissioners, to open Navarre Beach before the first of May. And I don't want to, speak for the mayor, but I understand that Mayor Robinson and Escambia have heard, the city's concerns, and they likewise have said the same, so I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, basically, that's it. You know, I feel like when we do, work together and have consistency in our policies and what we're doing, it's more regional and it's less confusing to people and I think more effective. So, and I appreciate Mayor Robertson including us and looking regionally at this. And, I did send, and I told him, you know, that we appreciate the ask and people love to work with them on, this plan. But that our main concern that we have as a community is, opening the beach and having out-of-state visitors, our traffic get back up. And it's a, you know, it's really a hard thing because it's like we want to support the businesses, we want and the hotels and even the people that live on the island that can't go on the beach, but then, you know, what's our trade-off? So they definitely, as you read through this, you'll see they are looking at, considering a lot of area, you know, a lot of different parts of things, you know, from the police to the hospitals to the, first responders. And so it'll be looking at it in a broad way as well as all of these small ways. But I did, mention that specifically when I responded.
And, just it occurs to me because of the timing, a resolution, you know, we would not have time to advertise that on an agenda before May. But given that you've all, you know, individually discussed the same issue in the past, perhaps a official letter that you would write that, is sent, you know, as, on behalf of the council, might also, depending on how the council feels, I mean, we could certainly do that in a timely fashion.
What are your thoughts on that? We haven't really talked about it as a council before. What are you hearing about the community?
Well, there's rumors running around that, I'm hearing from some people that, oh, the beach is fixing up. And so there are people out there that are talking, that seem to be maybe a step ahead of us already, you know, knowing it's gonna happen. And I think that there's a lot of people that are antsy to get back on there thinking, well, maybe it's just for the locals, you know, it would be nice if there wasn't some kind of advertised thing, if they do open some section that some locals, as opposed to attracting out of towners. And, I mean, we still have all the restaurants are closed, fairly, you know, nobody can eat inside, they can only take out, and the bars are all closed. So, it's not gonna, it wouldn't be back to the normalcy that you would normally see. You never know. When you see TV and you look at Jacksonville Beach, they went kind of going a little crazy out there.
I heard that was a big picture.
Well, I heard that too. So it was like Los Angeles Beach, how could it be these people at the same beach at the same time? You know, but you're right, I did see that too. So, you know,
I don't know that, I just,
that's a good point.
Well, and there was a rumor that went off like wildfire Friday that Navarre Beach was open. And that was the reason for a lot of texts that I received through the weekend. I don't know if that happened on social media, but there was definitely, that I think was the fuel Friday, that Navarre had opened, you know, is Pensacola going to open next? And that was not what we were hearing.
It just seems to be some rumors like that. running
Yeah.
around.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
well, there's different definitions of open. And to Randy's point, which I think is very valid, if you don't have bars and restaurants and other attractions open, it's not gonna be a big draw for a lot of people. Particularly if the county commission, Skinner County Commission decides to narrow the scope of time that people can actually use the beach. It might be early in the morning or late in the evening or something like that, so that's just for exercise. Get out there, take a quick view of the Gulf of Mexico, that kind of thing. To a certain extent, if there's anything where you can achieve social distancing and enjoy something, it's the beach. I mean, yeah.
And so would that perhaps be, in May, we're all looking, just as the council, you have a 5-week essential manning plan, for April. but as of, May, we will be, returning to normalcy, and that will be a phase. And so perhaps that's what you could, propose would be a system you'd support for May. It sounds like that's what Mayor Robinson is supporting inside the city of Pensacola anyway, that it be staged as well.
I was asked twice, Sunday by two different people randomly because they heard that our beaches were gonna be open from 6 to 12 in the morning, so and I called my back and I said, where did you hear that? And they said they thought maybe it was social media. So there's all sort of speculation out there.
With the National Seashore being closed from Pensacola to Long Beach, it's a lot of beach area that people could spread out,
I agree.
It's like it kind of really closes in by just having the Pensacola beach area.
I would say too, that you see what the state's gonna do, because that's the next important thing, man. If you open it up just in our beach, or it's cold beach, then it's gonna push people together versus if they go up and down all this, miles of difference.
Seems like they follow suit before them, as we see, maybe in whatever the city or county decided to do.
The state.
Yeah, they did the, yeah. Seemed like it was, they kind of follow suit both ways. I know what they're doing, I think.
Yeah, I would too. And it seems like my last things on TV, Governor DeSantis, it sounds like he's ready to start looking at doing something different and analyzing, getting all
In
the
the battle,
analysis in.
for.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's where they're going down to.
It's only 10 days away, but a lot of changes to occur between now and 10 days. It seems like every day it's, something new. So we might be in a much better position in 10 days than we think we would be.
Sure, yeah, it would be wonderful. So
Hope so.
then are we in agreement to go ahead and just write, a letter, supporting the conceptual, thought, and feel free, to read this later, I know we haven't had time, but just read it, and, let me know, and basically, it's just saying the same thing, to relax the standards and restrictions, in a safe manner. And there's not specifics in here, that's what they want to talk about this week, once they get more information.
I would support that, and also support the, loosening restrictions on the elective surgeries, because a lot of those are not particularly elective. It might sound like it, but a lot of people have a lot of pain and other things that they need to be fixed. I can't do anything right now.
You are
Oh,
right.
yeah, we scheduled it for 15th of May, Emerald Library. Dealing with it, getting legal issues there. I think things over for, I did get a call back from my doctor's office. They said, yeah, you're already starting to schedule, you're the first one to call, so I got to pick the day of it.
That's great, good timing.
I will pass.
All right, do we have, anything else for public forum? No? All right, shall we go to council comments? Okay,
So,
all right.
there's always one. Last, let's see,
Next time.
the SSRUS usually generally meets, second Monday of every other month.
Okay.
And a meeting was scheduled for last Monday, and, there was an agenda items, reports, there were all these things, but there was nobody, was put out on schedule that, for social distancing and so forth, did not actually meet. There was nothing, that I saw that was, controversial about the meeting. There were a couple of consent agenda items, that we went through and that will eventually show up on the, city council agenda. But they did pass, and it is there, will be there on file. And hopefully by, 2 months from now, we'll be able to get back to regular meetings. Anything that,
No, and we appreciate, the SSRU chairman's, Mayo's thoughts on that. Obviously, it's difficult because of the pandemic. We don't want to hold non-essential meetings, but in interest of the ratepayers, we need to continue the business of our utility. And so what we did here is we put together an agenda as we always would. We sent it out to the SSRU and we told them if you have any questions or concerns about any of these agenda items, then we'll table it and wait until after the pandemic. But if you don't and you feel good with them individually, then we're going to proceed with putting them on the next council agenda. And so Tom reviewed it as he normally did. We reviewed it with each individual member, and we just appreciate, us being able to move forward with important business and doing repairs and maintenance that needs to be done.
Right, thank you. Anything else? Just one thing, probably is happy birthday to our city clerk, Leslie Goddard, and thank you for spending dinner time with us.
Say that.
I know, the rest of the day. All right, we are adjourned.
Good job.